Joining us now on Practical 365 is Amesh Mansukhani. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
For those that don't know you, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Microsoft?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a program manager on the Office engineering team, and my primary focus is to help enterprise organizations be a lot more efficient with managing Office deployments and the entire overall just lifecycle of Office.
So, on the show, we were going to talk about the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center. And I think I've always known that as the Office Apps Admin Center for what I always called Office 365 Pro Plus, and I've been trying to call Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise, which rolls off the tongue really well. And people call them both, I think, still, because you get into that. But it's been renamed fairly recently to the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center. So for those that haven't seen this before, who is it for and what does it do?
Yeah, so the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center, or I'll just refer to the Apps Admin Center as I typically do for short. It's mainly to help provide a lot more insights into what's going on in your organization. Gives you options from configuring your overall configuration files. So depending on how you want to set your deployments, providing cloud-based policies. So that's another great feature that it provides. And recently we've added net new capabilities that give you the option to see a whole bunch of insights in your organization. What does the Office inventory look like? How many add-ins do you actually have? Are you being up to date on your security patches? And finally, we now have a new capability of what we call servicing profile to help you automate a lot of your ongoing updates while still giving the control that everybody's been asking for.
So if some of this sounded familiar to listeners, the first thing you said was creating those config files. And that's where if you haven't looked at this for 2 or 3 years, then that was the first part of it, wasn't it? You'd go to this and you'd use this as effectively like a static page. You didn't sign in originally, and you create those config XML files that you'd use. But it does a lot more than that now. One thing I did look in there, I saw a new policy that you can deploy over GPO to allow people to pick their own profile for whether they're on the beta rings, the current channels, and so on. And I noticed that particular one wasn't in there, but there's a lot of different settings that you can configure in that now. And in the scale of things, there's a lot of places to make these kind of configuration changes if you're an admin, whether that is Intune, Group Policy, obviously, Config Manager, and this admin center. So who's the target audience for this portal?
So right now, the way we've started and our typical philosophy for generating new ideas or features into this portal is to validate, develop and then validate that this is the right set of functionality that's needed for organizations. We know there's always a conversation of, hey, is this yet another portal? Microsoft, you now have the 117. Is it lost count after a while? So the idea here is for organizations who are truly focused, have a focused team on Office and just Office, that they can have a dedicated place in order to go. In fact, the reason we built this is because even our own internal IT folks called me up one day and said, hey, Amesh, I need this setting to change. And our own, Exchange IT admins would not even give us rights to log into the portal because we didn't have that separation or that delegation or the RBAC, if you will, capabilities. So we said, oh, that's a huge problem. That means Office admins are being prevented from doing their day-to-day job. So let's create a place that they could go visit and be able to manage all things Office. And that's exactly what we did. Now, we realized after that, once we created it, that for other organizations who use things like Endpoint Manager that say, oh no, I actually need to have a single place and I don't want to go portal hopping, how do we then do that? So we take in all the proven technologies, and upcoming proven technologies will also show up in MEM directly. So you're going to have that synergy there, so you're not portal hopping when you don't need to.
So you've got different choices then, but fundamentally there's a core ask in perhaps larger organisations where it's not one or two people who are managing the service, but it is separate teams, as we see in a lot of customers who really people often said that your job will go when you move to the cloud. The number of portals shows how many different roles there are when you're managing a service, especially of that scale for your business. But it is aimed at those other customers. But I look at it and I see a lot in there for the sort of sub 300 business premium type organizations as well, where this, especially if you hadn't got Intune to help manage your estate, and you've got a lot of remote workers, you don't have them VPN in as often or anymore, then this is also a really good place to create and define those policies.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And as I mentioned earlier, right, like you can do it from multiple different places. In fact, we are working closely with the configuration manager team and the Intune, the endpoint manager team, in order to integrate these modules, which I like to call modules, into those different portals. So wherever you go, it's all the same backend information and things won't change. And as you mentioned, right, depending on the size of the team and everything, we're trying to fit multiple different organization frameworks. And we know everybody's different, right?
That's good to hear. So it's not a tactical solution that's been developed. It's really sort of thinking about how you do have a single version of the truth. So if an organization over time starts using Intune, then the work they might have done in the apps admin center portal, then theoretically what should happen is those are going to surface if they're using endpoint manager tooling like Intune. That's interesting too. I didn't know it could do that. So,
we don't want to go through migrations, right? One day you're using the apps admin center, next thing you know you want to adopt Intune, and then you're like, oh, now I have to focus on yet another migration. No. It just shows up because you're using the same set of credentials, or at least the same tenant, and then it will pull that same information directly there.
I think that's what customers often want to hear, though, that Microsoft product groups are working together, especially people who have worked with these services for a long time. Back in the on-premises days, trying to integrate different Microsoft solutions could be quite difficult. So with this move towards self-updating applications, which for some it's new, but for those that have been in Office 365 for a long time, it's not necessarily new. What sort of control or visibility are organizations wanting and asking Microsoft for today?
So there's been a lot of great ask around just give me a good information about my my environment. One of the things, in fact, I recently had just in the past 30 days, 2 customers approach me and say, wow, Amesh, I didn't realize that we had these add-ins within our organizations, and yet alone they also had a deployment that they conducted on bringing a particular add-in up to date. And they're like, yeah, everything was done great. We did the deployment. Everything was fantastic. 6 months later, they look at the apps admin center for the first time, and they're like, oh, they missed a huge chunk. Over a third actually never had those upgrades conducted. And, they were experiencing some issues here and there from mismatched versions, but they were easily able to get quick insights with this data that now you're able to see in the apps admin center. So that is huge. The other set of controls that customers are asking for are, they want automation, but nobody trusts automation off the bat, right? I mean, if you look at those autonomous cars, you're not just jumping in a car and going off the wheel. Your foot's kind of hovering on that brake. You're trying to hold on to that steering wheel closely. And so everybody wants that comfort. They want to make sure that if something goes wrong, they have the ability to do that. So we have a nice little pause button that we can, anybody can invoke pretty quickly. We provide extra set of features such as exclusion dates. We all know, for financial companies, there's tax seasons. For retail companies, there are holiday seasons that they just don't want any updates, no end user disruption. So we help provide those kind of settings that enable them to have better control, better customization on how that automation is going to work.
That's got to be a good thing, because I've encountered organizations where we might go in for another part of the deployment, and you find that for some reason, and I think this is less common now, prior to Config Manager having native integrations, I know that's been around for a long while, you used to find that people would deploy a built package of Office 365 Pro Plus at a set version. They effectively keep deploying packages, uninstall, reinstall it, because they were worried. And people have been through the mill with other products. I can remember, still as if it was yesterday, 18 years ago, maybe 19 years ago, a McAfee update, just the patches that you get, and you've got to push them out daily, blue screening hundreds and hundreds of NT4 machines. And I've never had that with Office, but add-ins that break are the big worry, because they are often the finance teams and people like that are using them. Though, I would say to anybody listening, I've had organisations with 20, 30,000 people who were on, if you remember this, the Office 2013 set of click to run, and there was a bigger upgrade process between that and the current version, and they did that for everybody. They waited until the last minute, but they did that for everybody, and even that upgrade process, nothing broke. It was reasonably pretty seamless, and that's we don't hear a lot of these add-in issues in general as part of generic updating. So people moving to that model, it's got to be a good thing, right?
It is a fantastic model. Honestly, I mean, when I joined the team, what is it now, 6+ years ago, I know we did encounter that 2013 upgrade, and I heavily advocated to our team saying, hey, we need to stop upgrades. We said last upgrade, this is the last upgrade. We got to focus on updates. They could make it smaller, easier, better. Let's freeze the API changes. So there are, we minimize the risk areas for add-in breakage. And so we really haven't heard a lot around add-ins breaking. Now, we've heard some stuff around add-ins maybe slowing down Office, and then Office looking like it's just the performance has degraded. So we've come out with another set of solutions called the Apps Health that can actually see your overall either crash rate or performance, that gives you better insights there too. That's
really useful. So I'm somebody who, for a customer, I had to drive. I'm in the middle of the UK, so I had to drive on a Sunday evening up to Edinburgh to a customer to test add-in performance, and not just from gaining the statistics out of the software, but also visually record some of this as well, and analyze how that impacted, particularly with Outlook, performance against servers as well. That was only a few years ago. So things like that kind of information that can save a lot of time. And also often you do things like that to prove that there isn't a problem rather than diagnose a problem. Prove that the add-ins aren't causing this issue,
right? So
you can move on to actually what it was, which in this case was, I'll let you guess, what would cause Outlook to have problems and latency across a network.
How many add-ins do you have on that? Right?
Well, we took all the add-ins off, and it was still the same. Oh. It was the network. It was a badly configured switch somewhere.
Wow.
It turned out. But if we could have looked in a portal and seen some of this kind of data up front, for various problems like this, it saves up a lot of time, and it's those questions around the project team asking, is this the thing that's responsible? So that's something that I've got a feeling over time, when that next crops up in a similar scenario, I might find quite useful myself. So that's health of add-ins. What other sort of health capabilities is that going to give you and insights?
So right now, I mean, we're primarily focused on crashes, right? And I'll give you a great customer anecdote that we hit recently, where we were in a meeting room and somebody was complaining about Excel and saying Excel is just really, really slow. And so we came in, we said, okay, let's analyze your environment. Let's see what's going on. Let's just pop up the Apps Admin Center, look at some of your health data. And there was a little blip at this one date that said, yep, performance for Excel was just horrific. And somebody in that room was like, wait, wasn't that the date that we rolled out that one add-in to everybody? And everybody's like, wait, oh, is it an add-in problem? And so think about if we can now take that data, especially as we move more into the endpoint manager solutions, where we can start merging and marrying data across other deployments that could potentially affect Office, that go, oh yeah, it was that add-in because they installed the wrong, or they discovered a bug in that add-in that actually made Exchange degradate overall performance. They quickly contacted that vendor, fixed it, and deployed it out again, and everything was great. But it took somebody in that room to go, wasn't that the same date and time that we did that rollout? So that's where we started, and we're realizing now by marrying additional set of data, which you'll start seeing in the future, as well as looking at performance markers, then you could start determining how well or not are you doing. In fact, there's a study that we are doing internally that we recently, the initial data is now showing us that if you are on the slower channels, like the semi-annual enterprise channels, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose close to 20% of performance in general. Because if you think about what we've been doing, when we release bits, we're releasing bits to complement any of the new service availabilities that are out there, right? It's all about cloud services, making sure that you're getting the best productivity tools out there. Now, those anything that's done in the current channel or the brand new monthly enterprise channel, those are pretty much close to lockstep with service releases. But by the time it waterfalls down to the semi-annual channel, 6+ months later, well, we've done some additional tuning that's focused primarily on the faster channels, not the slower ones. And so admins are out there, running around trying to find issues and chasing problems that are already fixed and tuned and better available in that faster channel. So that's why we're continuing to analyze this, and we're going to start doing a lot more recommendations for that monthly channel versus the semi-annual, just for that.
And some customers will have been advised to run a subset of users on the newer channels anyway. So getting people as close to current as possible before deploying this for the rest of the org. But there's many that are hesitant, and I run on the insider channel, and I have very few problems. But I couldn't imagine being on the semi-annual channel if I was a worker in a business, because there's just there's so many things like the room pickers, things like these that you want people to have exposed to them. It's important stuff. So people do have to rethink the way that they are managing what is an evergreen service that is provided by Microsoft.
And if you look at other segments within the organization where they're adopting Teams, OneDrive for Business, all of those are being updated in a more seamless way. They're very hands-offish. In fact, we polled a lot of enterprises. We said, do you want us to slow those down? And they're like, no, because their fixes are being delivered faster. And that's exactly what we're doing with the Office apps as well. And we just want, help them realize that is the case for them. So we can get fixes faster, higher performance, features faster, so you're not creating shadow ITs. Those are all the benefits of going on a faster channel.
So really, customers who, and this is an occasional ask, say, why can't Teams update the way Office does? Really, they should be asking the opposite question then.
That is correct. I mean, in fact, a lot of customers who finally gotten frustrated of waiting for quality fixes down, 6 months later to hit the semi-annual channel. They've just said, we're moving to monthly enterprise, and they're extremely, extremely happy. In fact, we're starting to build case studies around that, so those will be released over the next several months, and so we'll start getting a lot more evidence out there. But we definitely think that is the right place for customers to be.
So if people want to get started with the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center, where do they need to go then?
You can head to https://config.office.com, sign in there with an Office 365 credentials. You can either be a global admin or a specific Office Apps admin role to be able to sign in and start using it.
Thank you for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.